The Forgotten Colony. The wind howled across the barren landscape of Meridian 9, a planet that seemed more intent on killing its inhabitants than supporting life. Dr. Arya Chen stood at the observation window of Outpost Omega, her weathered hands pressed against the reinforced glass, watching the metallic dust storms rage outside. Meridian 9 was humanity's most extreme colonization attempt, a planet with an atmosphere so toxic and terrain so unforgiving that most would have called the mission impossible. But impossibility had never stopped humanity before. The colony, now in its 15th year, was a testament to human stubbornness and ingenuity. Arya remembered the early days. 5,000 colonists had arrived, driven by a combination of scientific curiosity, economic desperation, and an unquenchable desire to push the boundaries of human survival. Now, only 2,000 remained. The planet had claimed lives through illness, accidents, and the relentless psychological toll of living in an environment that seemed to hate human existence. The colony's primary settlement, New Providence, was a marvel of engineering. Massive dome structures interconnected like a complex honeycomb, each section carefully pressurized and filtered. Beneath the surface, an intricate network of tunnels and hydroponics facilities sustained the remaining population. Dr. Chen, a voice crackled over the communication system. It was Marcus Rodriguez, the colony's chief engineer. "We've got another problem with the Northern Agricultural Dome." Arya sighed. Problems were a constant companion on Meridian 9. "What's the issue this time?" "The modified algae cultures are showing unexpected mutations. They're developing resistance patterns we've never seen before. It's like the local microorganisms are actively adapting to our containment strategies." This was nothing new. Every attempt to establish Earth-based agricultural systems had been met with resistance from Meridian 9's unique biological ecosystem. The planet seemed alive in a way that defied conventional scientific understanding, not sentient, but certainly adaptive. "Send me the full diagnostic," Arya responded. "And call a meeting of the research team. We need to understand what's happening." The communication clicked off, and Arya turned back to the window. Outside, the metallic dust continued its endless dance, obscuring the rocky terrain and distant mountain ranges. Meridian 9 was more than just a hostile environment, it was a challenge, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Her comm badge vibrated again. This time, it was an urgent message from the colony's geological survey team. They had discovered something unusual in the deep cavern systems that honeycombed the planet's crust, something that didn't match any previous geological surveys. "Just another day in paradise," Arya muttered to herself, a wry smile crossing her lips. The meeting room was a stark contrast to the chaotic environment outside. Clean, efficient, with holographic displays showing complex data streams. Marcus Rodriguez sat next to Dr. Elena Volkov, the colony's lead xenobiologist, and Jacob Kim, their chief environmental engineer. "The mutations in the algae cultures are accelerating," Elena began, her Russian accent more pronounced when she was excited. "But it's not random. There's a pattern we're missing." Jacob's fingers danced across a holographic interface, pulling up intricate molecular diagrams. "The local microorganisms are developing communication networks that mimic neural pathways. It's like they're learning, not just mutating." Arya leaned forward. "Learning from what?" "From us," Marcus said quietly. "From our containment attempts, our technologies." The room fell silent. This was more than just a scientific anomaly. This was something fundamentally different from anything humanity had encountered before. Little did they know that their discovery would be the first step in a transformation that would change everything, not just for the colony, but potentially for all of human understanding of life itself. The metallic dust storm continued to rage outside, indifferent to the potential breakthrough happening within the colony's protective domes. Meridian 9 held secrets, and humanity was about to unravel them, one impossible challenge at a time. First contact of desperation. The discovery in the deep caverns changed everything. What had begun as a routine geological survey transformed into something far more extraordinary, a revelation that would push the boundaries of human understanding. Dr. Elena Volkov's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the high-resolution scanner. The cavern walls pulsed with an unexpected energy signature, unlike anything in the known scientific catalog. Microscopic filaments seemed to weave through the rocky substrate, creating a network that defied conventional biological classification. "Marcus," she called over the comm link, "you need to see this." Marcus Rodriguez arrived within minutes, his engineering background making him both skeptical and intensely curious. The cavern's ambient temperature was surprisingly stable, almost controlled, despite being kilometers beneath Meridian 9's hostile surface. "It's like the entire cavern is alive," Elena whispered, her scientific detachment momentarily giving way to wonder. Their exploration was interrupted by a sudden vibration, not from geological activity, but from something deliberate. The rock walls began to shift, microscopic channels realigning in patterns that suggested intelligence. Then they heard it. A sound that was neither mechanical nor organic, but something in between, a complex harmonic frequency that seemed to carry meaning. Outside the cavern, the colony was about to face its most significant challenge yet. Arya Chen was reviewing the latest survival reports when the first transmission arrived. It wasn't from their communication arrays, but appeared directly on their primary systems, a message that seemed to bypass all conventional communication protocols. The symbols were unlike any known language. They shifted and morphed, carrying what seemed to be complex mathematical and biological information. Jacob Kim, working alongside Arya, began to map the transmission structure. "This isn't random," Jacob muttered. "It's a communication." But from what? The colony's leadership assembled in the emergency command center. The transmission continued, growing more complex with each passing hour. Their most advanced translation algorithms struggled to decode even fragments of the message. "We're dealing with something beyond our current understanding," Arya concluded. "Whatever is trying to communicate with us isn't following any known rules of communication." Marcus brought up the cavern scans. The microscopic network they had discovered seemed to be the source of the transmission. It was as if the planet itself was trying to communicate. Suddenly, the colony's external sensors went wild. Something was approaching, a vessel that didn't match any known design. Its shape was fluid, almost organic, defying the traditional geometric shapes of spacecraft. The vessel stopped just outside the colony's defensive perimeter. No weapons were deployed, no traditional hailing frequencies were used. Instead, another wave of complex transmissions washed over their systems. Elena was the first to make a breakthrough. "It's not just a message," she said, her voice a mixture of excitement and fear. "It's an invitation." The alien vessel, if it could be called a vessel, seemed to be made of the same living material they had discovered in the caverns. Its exterior shifted and changed, revealing glimpses of something that was simultaneously technological and biological. Jacob's translation algorithms began to parse fragments of meaning. "They're curious," he said, bewildered. "Not hostile. Curious about us." The colony went into high alert. Years of survival on this hostile planet had taught them caution. Every system was locked down, defensive measures primed. But something felt different about this encounter. Arya studied the transmission carefully. The mathematical components suggested a civilization that understood communication as a form of complex problem-solving. Each symbol was a potential solution, each transmission a collaborative exploration. "They're trying to understand us," she realized. "Not conquer. Not threaten. Understand." The vessel remained stationary, its living exterior pulsing with intricate patterns of light and movement. It was waiting, for what, no one could be certain. Marcus prepared a response. Using the same complex symbolic language they had received, he crafted a message that was part mathematical proof, part cultural snapshot. It included data about human survival, their adaptation to Meridian 9, the challenges they had overcome. "We're showing them our strength," Marcus explained. "Not through aggression, but through resilience." As the message was transmitted, the alien vessel's exterior began to change. The living material seemed to resonate with their communication, creating a feedback loop of information exchange. They were no longer just survivors on a hostile planet. They had become something more, potential participants in a form of communication that transcended traditional understanding. The caverns beneath them continued to pulse. The microscopic networks expanded, seemingly excited by the exchange. Meridian 9 was revealing its secrets, and humanity was about to step into a new realm of cosmic understanding. Arya looked at her team, Elena with her scientific passion, Marcus with his engineering precision, Jacob with his computational brilliance. They were humanity's representatives in this moment of first contact. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "we face it together." The alien vessel continued to hover, a silent promise of revelation waiting to unfold. The adaptive breakthrough. The days following the first contact transformed Meridian 9's colony into a crucible of scientific innovation. The alien vessel, or communication entity, remained just outside their perimeter, sending increasingly complex transmissions that challenged everything humanity thought they knew about communication and intelligence. Dr. Jacob Kim had been working non-stop, his workspace a labyrinth of holographic displays and custom-built computational interfaces. Walls covered with diagrams showed the progressive decoding of the alien transmissions, each breakthrough more mind-bending than the last. "It's not just a language," Jacob explained to Arya during their daily briefing. "It's a living mathematical ecosystem. Each symbol is a potential solution to a problem, but the problems and solutions are constantly evolving." Elena Volkov leaned forward, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. "The cavern networks we discovered, they're acting as a biological communication matrix. It's like the entire planet is one massive, interconnected neural network." Marcus Rodriguez, ever the pragmatic engineer, had been working on something entirely different. Using fragments of the alien transmission's mathematical principles, he had begun redesigning the colony's life support and environmental systems. "Look at this," he said, bringing up a holographic model. The new design looked nothing like traditional human engineering. Organic curves replaced rigid lines, adaptive membranes replaced fixed structures. The transmission contains principles of self-modification and adaptive problem-solving. "We can apply this to our own technologies." The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. The colony's failing agricultural domes, which had been struggling to support crops in Meridian 9's hostile environment, suddenly began to thrive. The modified systems, inspired by the alien transmission's principles, could now adapt in real time to the planet's changing conditions. Crops that had previously died within weeks now grew with unprecedented resilience. The microscopic networks they had discovered seemed to be integrating with their agricultural systems, creating a symbiotic relationship that defied conventional ecological understanding. But the most significant discovery was yet to come. Deep in the caverns, Elena made a startling observation. The living networks were not just communicating, they were learning. Each interaction with human technology caused subtle shifts in their structure, creating increasingly complex patterns of information exchange. "They're studying us," Elena realized, "just as we're studying them." The alien vessel continued to hover, its living exterior now displaying intricate patterns that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the colony's own technological heartbeat. It was no longer just an observer but a participant in their survival. Jacob's breakthrough came during a moment of extreme frustration. He had been trying to decode a particularly complex section of the transmission when he realized something profound. The communication was not about sending a message, it was about solving problems collaboratively. "It's a universal problem-solving language," he explained to the team. "Each transmission is an invitation to solve a challenge. The challenge changes based on the participant's capabilities and environment. Marcus immediately saw the potential. We could use this to solve problems we've never even considered. Energy production, environmental adaptation, technological innovation, all could be approached differently. The colony began to transform. Their technologies became more fluid, more adaptive. Structures could now reshape themselves based on environmental needs. Energy systems could redistribute power with unprecedented efficiency. Even their medical technologies started to incorporate the adaptive principles they were learning. But with each breakthrough came new questions. Who, or what, were the beings attempting to communicate? Were they a singular entity? A collective consciousness? The living networks in the caverns and the vessel outside suggested something far more complex than a traditional civilization. Arya Chen stood at the observation window, watching the metallic dust storms of Meridian 9. The planet that had once seemed intent on destroying them was now revealing itself as something entirely different, a potential partner in survival. "We're not just surviving anymore," she said quietly to her team. "We're evolving." The alien vessel pulsed in response, its living exterior creating a complex pattern that seemed almost like acknowledgement. The boundaries between human technology and the planet's mysterious networks were blurring. As night fell on Meridian 9, the colony's interconnected domes glowed with a soft, adaptive light. The microscopic networks beneath the surface continued their endless dance of communication and problem-solving. Humanity had come to this planet as conquerors and survivors. They were becoming something else entirely, collaborators in a cosmic dialogue beyond their previous comprehension. Marcus looked at the latest system diagnostics. Their survival probability had increased by 372% since they began interpreting the alien transmissions. Not through weapons or traditional technological superiority, but through understanding, adaptation, and collaborative problem-solving. "We're not just changing how we survive," Marcus said, a smile crossing his face. "We're changing how we exist." The alien vessel continued to hover, a silent promise of revelations yet to come. Meridian 9 was no longer just a hostile planet. It was becoming a classroom, a laboratory, and perhaps, a new home. Turning the tide. The news arrived unexpectedly, a quantum communication burst from the distant Galactic Confederation. A catastrophic event was unfolding in the Orion Arm, threatening multiple star systems with total ecological collapse. Dr. Arya Chen studied the transmission, her fingers tracing the holographic data streams. The problem was complex, a cascading environmental failure caused by an unprecedented interaction between artificial terraforming technologies and a previously unknown quantum-reactive microorganism. "They've tried everything," Marcus Rodriguez said, his voice heavy with the weight of the information. "Traditional xenoengineering approaches, advanced computational modeling, even full-scale planetary evacuation. Nothing works." The irony was not lost on the Meridian 9 team. A year ago, they would have been considered the least likely problem solvers in the galaxy. Now, their unique approach to adaptive technologies, learned from the mysterious planetary networks they discovered, offered a potential solution. Elena Volkov had been studying the transmission intensely. "The microorganism doesn't just resist traditional ecological interventions," she explained. "It actively transforms them. It's not a problem to be solved, it's a system seeking balance." Jacob Kim's fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces. The adaptive algorithms they developed on Meridian 9 were unlike anything in traditional galactic scientific archives. Where others saw a problem to be conquered, their team saw a complex dialogue waiting to be understood. "We can help," Jacob said quietly. "But it will require something more than traditional intervention." The Galactic Confederation's initial response was predictable. Skepticism. Dismissal. A small human colony on a barely habitable planet claiming to solve a crisis that had stumped the most advanced civilizations seemed preposterous. But Arya Chen was not interested in convincing bureaucrats. She was interested in solving problems. Their plan was audacious. Instead of attempting to destroy or suppress the quantum-reactive microorganism, they would create a communication matrix, similar to the one they developed with Meridian 9's living networks. A technological ecosystem that could dialogue with the microorganism, understand its fundamental drives, and find a path to mutual survival. The alien vessel that had hovered near their colony since first contact seemed to pulse with anticipation. Its living exterior created complex patterns that suggested not just understanding, but active participation. Preparations took 3 weeks. The team developed a quantum-adaptive transmission system that could interface with the problematic microorganism without traditional invasive techniques. It was less an intervention and more a conversation, a collaborative problem-solving approach that defied conventional scientific methodology. As they prepared to transmit their solution, Marcus discovered something extraordinary. The adaptive technologies they developed weren't just a product of human ingenuity, they were a true collaboration with the living networks of Meridian 9. The planet itself seemed to be learning, evolving, participating in their solution. The transmission began. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the quantum-reactive microorganism's behavior began to change. Instead of destructive expansion, it started to create complex ecological bridges, transforming the threatened star systems into interconnected, self-regulating environments. Galactic Confederation scientists were stunned. What had seemed like an impossible ecological disaster was being transformed before their eyes. "It's not about control," Elena explained during a subsequent briefing. "It's about communication. About understanding the fundamental drives of a system rather than trying to force it into a predetermined shape." The solution they developed went beyond the immediate ecological crisis. It represented a fundamental shift in how technological civilizations might approach complex systemic challenges. Reports began flooding in. The affected star systems were not just stabilizing, they were thriving. Ecosystems that had been on the brink of total collapse were regenerating with unprecedented speed and complexity. The alien vessel outside their colony seemed to celebrate, its living exterior creating intricate light patterns that suggested something close to joy. But their team understood this was more than a scientific victory. It was a philosophical breakthrough. Humanity was demonstrating that true problem-solving wasn't about domination, but about deep, patient understanding. Arya Chen looked at her team, Marcus with his engineering precision, Elena with her biological insights, Jacob with his computational brilliance. They were no longer just survivors on a hostile planet. They were architects of a new approach to existence. "We're not just saving ecosystems," she said quietly. "We're teaching the galaxy a new way of thinking." The Galactic Confederation's official response was swift. A diplomatic mission was being prepared, not as conquerors or saviors, but as potential partners. The small human colony on Meridian 9 had just changed the fundamental approach to interstellar ecological management. As night fell on their colony, the living networks beneath the planet's surface continued their endless dance of communication and adaptation. Humanity had come to this planet as survivors. They were leaving it as something far more profound, collaborative architects of a new cosmic understanding. The metallic dust storms outside seemed to whisper with possibility. Meridian 9 was no longer just a planet. It was a classroom. A laboratory. A promise of what could be. A new paradigm. 5 years had passed since the Meridian 9 colony had transformed galactic understanding. What had begun as a desperate survival mission had become something far more significant, a new model of interspecies and intersystemic collaboration. The diplomatic vessel approached Meridian 9, its design a testament to the changes that had swept through galactic civilization. Gone were the rigid, militaristic shapes of previous designs. Instead, the ship moved with an organic fluidity that suggested learning, adaptation, and open communication. Dr. Arya Chen stood at the colony's primary reception dome, watching the approach. Beside her, Marcus Rodriguez adjusted the environmental interfaces, while Elena Volkov and Jacob Kim prepared the communication matrices that had become their signature approach to first contact. "They're different now," Marcus observed, noting the ship's unusual approach. "It's not just a diplomatic mission. It's a collaborative expedition." The vessel's exterior began to shift, its living technology mimicking the adaptive networks they had first discovered in Meridian 9's caverns. It was no longer just a method of transportation, it was a participant in the communication. As the diplomatic team disembarked, it became clear this was unlike any previous galactic encounter. The representatives were a diverse collective, not just different species, but different forms of intelligence. Some were biological, others were quantum-adaptive intelligences, and some existed in forms that defied traditional classification. The lead representative approached Arya. She was a hybrid being, part biological, part technological, her very existence a testament to the new paradigm of understanding that had emerged. "We are here," she said, "not as representatives, but as students." The words carried profound meaning. The ecological solution developed by the Meridian 9 team had sparked a revolution in galactic thinking. It was no longer about conquest or resource extraction, but about deep, collaborative problem-solving. Elena stepped forward, presenting a holographic representation of their journey. It wasn't a traditional presentation, but a living narrative, an adaptive story that changed based on the listener's responses and understanding. "Survival is not about domination," she explained. "It's about communication. About understanding the fundamental drives of any system, biological, technological, or something in between." The diplomatic team moved through the colony, studying every aspect of their adaptive technologies. The living dome structures, the quantum-responsive agricultural systems, the communication matrices that could interface with almost any form of intelligence, each was a lesson in collaborative existence. Jacob Kim demonstrated their latest breakthrough, a communication protocol that could interface with systems previously considered incompatible. It wasn't translation in the traditional sense, but a form of mutual understanding that allowed fundamentally different systems to find common ground. "We're not solving problems," Jacob explained. "We're creating conversations." The alien vessel that had first contacted them years ago remained nearby, now understood to be a living entity in its own right. Its presence was a constant reminder of the journey that had brought them to this moment. Marcus Rodriguez showed the diplomatic team the underground caverns, the living networks that had first taught them about adaptive communication. What had once seemed alien and incomprehensible was now viewed as a complex, intelligent system worthy of respect and understanding. As the day progressed, it became clear that this was more than a diplomatic mission. It was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent systems might interact. The hybrid representative shared stories of how the Meridian 9 approach had transformed multiple star systems. Ecological disasters were being resolved not through force, but through deep, patient communication. Technological challenges were being approached as collaborative puzzles rather than problems to be conquered. Arya Chen reflected on their journey. They had come to Meridian 9 as survivors, clinging to existence on a hostile planet. Now, they were architects of a new way of understanding, not just for humanity, but for all intelligent systems. As the diplomatic mission concluded, the representative offered something unprecedented. An invitation to join a new form of galactic collective, not a federation or an empire, but a collaborative network of problem solvers. "You have shown," the representative said, "that intelligence is not about power. It's about understanding. About finding connections where others see only differences." The alien vessel outside pulsed with a light that seemed to express something close to joy. The living networks beneath Meridian 9 continued their endless dance of communication and adaptation. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as collaborators. Not as the strongest species, but as the most adaptable. Not through might, but through understanding. As night fell on Meridian 9, the colony's adaptive domes glowed with a soft, living light. The metallic dust storms outside whispered with possibility. They were no longer just survivors. They were architects of a new cosmic understanding. A promise. A possibility. A new way of existing.